The slap sounded like a door slammed in a quiet church. Sha public final. My earring skittered across marble, a small silver moon rolling to rest beneath a table. Dressed in white 50 guests, froze forks, hovered my sister's veil, trembled like it wanted to escape. "Hand over the keys," my mother said, breath sweet with champagne and entitlement now. She said it the way she used to tell me to tie my shoes. Like ownership was assumed. I tasted ironot from the hit. My mouth was still, but from the memory of every sacrifice they'd repackaged as debt the penthouse. Keys were warm in my palm. I'd carried them, like a promise-like proof I had built something no one could take. I closed my fingers around them. No? That was all. Her hand came out of nowhere the room, inhaled me head, turned the earring flew, and in that moment, something old and obedient finally died. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry, didn't explain. I walked out. Outside, the city hummed, indifferent and perfecti, leaned against a column, adjusted my coat, and made a call I'd prepared for months, but hoped I'd never need. "Do it," I said now. I wasn't always the difficult child. I was the reliable one. The one who stayed late, sent money home, said yes when everyone else said later. When I bought the penthouse, it wasn't a flex-it, was a finish line. Years of silent grind. Contracts signed in cheap coffee shops, sleeping 4 hours and calling it rest. They congratulated me like strangers. Then they moved in like creditors. It started small, me mother asking for a spare key in case of emergencies. My father bringing guests to see what success looks like. My sister hinting about how cramped her place was, how unfair it felt that I had space she didn't. I said yes then again, then always. Love in our family had terms. I told myself it was temporary, that once the wedding was paid for, once the debts were settled, once everyone felt secure, the pressure would ease. It didn't. It sharpened. I noticed the shift before I understood it. My mail opened me concierge, asking strange questions, a neighbor mentioning my parents' renovation plans. Documents forwarded to me that I hadn't signed, but somehow bore my name. I stayed calm is a skill you learn when reacting costs too much. I pulled records quietly, called banks, checked registries, listened more than I spoke. That's when I saw it, the shell company my father had incorporated years ago. Dormant until recently, the sudden lien attempt, the power of attorney form, drafted but never filed, waiting like a loaded gun in a drawer. They weren't asking for the penthouse. They were positioning to take it. I didn't confront them. I smiled at dinner, paid for centerpieces slit. My mother fuss over seating charts, like she wasn't planning a theft wrapped in lace. Betrayal hurts most when it wears your childhood face. Planning felt like breathing again. I met with a lawyer whose silence cost more than my Cara forensic accountant, who spoke in numbers sharp enough to cut. We traced every move, every transfer attempt, every signature practice sheet my mother kept in a drawer she thought I'd never open. We prepared counterweights, trust documents, finalized ownership, clarified notices, drafted but not sent cameras, install at access logs, preservati, let them think time was on their side. The wedding invitation arrived thick, expensive, an event built to impress people who didn't know us well enough to see the cracks. IRSVP, yes. Revenge doesn't rush. It waits for witnesses. Back in the ballroom, I could still hear the slap echoing. Imagined it would follow my mother for the rest of her life, bouncing off every wall she tried to hide behind. I didn't go far, just across the street, coffee, a seat by the window, I set my earring on the table between us, me and my reflection like evidence. At exactly 58 minutes after my call, a black sedan pulled up to the venue. I watched through glass as a man stepped out mid-50, a scum gray suit that meant business, not fashiony, carried a leather folder and the kind of patience that comes from knowing you're about to end something. He didn't rush, walked like the room already belonged to him. Inside, music faltered, conversations broke apart. My mother saw him first. Her smile died mid-performance. "No," she whispered, loud enough for the front row to hearken louder, cracking, "No, no, no." She screamed when he introduced himself. Not because he was threatening, because he was precise. He was the court-appointed trustee for the property she believed she'd almost secured. He was there to serve notice of attempted fraud, unlawful access, and a restraining order barring her and anyone acting on her behalf from my residence. My father stood again, his hands shook. The shell company name was spoken aloud, stripped of secrecy, data's amounts intent. Guests stared, phones came out. My sister cried, not for love, but for the optics. I finished my coffee. When I returned, the room split for me like water. My mother lunged. Security stopped her, screamed my name like it was a curse, like she'd invented it and could take it back. "You did this," she said, "after everything." I looked at her, really looked. I thought of the nights I sent money instead of sleeping, the signatures. I didn't forget the trust I gave like oxygen. "Yes," I said softly, "did." The trustee handed me a copy of the notice. Me name was clean on the pageant, touched untaken. My sister wouldn't meet my eyes. My father's shoulders folded inward, years catching up all at once. I picked up my earring from the floor and held it out to my mother, stared at it like it might bite. "You dropped this when you hit me," I said. "Keep it a souvenir." I turned to the guest 50 witnesses, to a truth that had been fermenting for decades. "This wedding is beautiful," I said, "but ownership is not a family heirloom, it's earned." I left before anyone could clap. Later, alone in the penthouse, I stood by the windows and let the city settle around me. The silence wasn't lonely, it was earned. I thought revenge would feel louder, fireworks, applause. It didn't. It felt like balance. I didn't destroy them, expose them to themselves. I let the law do what it's designed to do when emotion can't be trusted. The keys lay on the counter, heavy and honest. I slept that night without dreams. In the morning, the light came in exactly how I liked it. And for the first time, nothing was reaching for what was mine.